President Biden's infrastructure plan not getting a lot of love across the aisle. Baseball's opening day with fans in the stands, and Love Hate 8 to end the week. Friday Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Friday, April 2nd. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo.
Good Friday to you, Jill, and to everybody who celebrates. What a week. This week has been a tough one. I don't even know. Has it? It just seems like it's been long.
They all seem long. I don't know.
I feel you on that.
Okay.
By the way, before we start, Jill, I just want to do a little self-promotion here. You and I finally recorded our COVID Silver Linings podcast after many weeks. We did that yesterday. We'll drop that today, later on this morning. So if you're looking for something to listen to, it's pretty much just like a elongated podcast. We're just kind of brainstorming about some of the ways that our lives could change for the better once we're out of this pandemic. But look for that wherever you get your pods later on today. Good weekend listening, I think.
All right, Carlo, the U.S. is tantalizingly close to doing 3 million vaccine doses a day. We hit a new weekday record yesterday as cases and hospitalizations are now back on the rise because of vaccine uptake among seniors. This current wave centered in the Northeast and Michigan is likely to be much less deadly. The CDC now walking back comments made by its director that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, saying it's possible that some fully vaccinated people could still contract and spread it. Also, this got buried in the news, but the FDA just approved the first COVID tests that are meant for frequent at-home testing. They're known as serial tests, and the kits will be available over the counter within weeks.
That's a big deal. These tests, they're not as good as the PCR, the brain ticklers, but they're still good. And the fact that they're easy, cheap, plentiful, you can get them over the counter, no prescription. They're going to be on the shelf at CVS soon. That's going to make them very useful, especially just for asymptomatic cases, right? People who are, they haven't been vaccinated yet. Maybe they're doing a public-facing job. You could just take one of these every morning before work and try and, that's going to help catch, I think, especially a lot of asymptomatic cases. It's about time. I mean, we've been asking for this for a year now. Have you been following this thing with the CDC director saying the vaccinated people don't carry the virus? It's become like this whole thing now. And I am left amazed by the Center for Disease Control here and what they're doing. So Director Walensky, she made these comments the other day on MSNBC on Rachel Maddow. She was obviously, if you watch it, she was obviously like speaking broadly about how 90% of infections are prevented after you've been fully vaccinated. So that got all of the experts, a lot of scientists, a lot of people on Twitter coming out of the woodwork saying, well, that's not 100%, so you shouldn't say that. I mean, we don't know for sure that vaccinated people aren't transmitting the virus, but we pretty much know it. We pretty much do, right? Vaccinated people aren't getting or spreading COVID, generally speaking. Obviously, it's not 100%, but it's close. And if they were, you wouldn't be seeing the numbers like we're seeing out of Israel, Jill. I mean, have you looked at Israel lately? The pandemic is more or less over there. I mean, not over like it's over in Florida where they just pretend like it's over, but like actually over. I mean, look at these statistics out of Israel. 500 people currently hospitalized, 300 new cases yesterday. That was 9,000 in January. 8 people died yesterday. 0 people died earlier this week, one of the days, Monday or Tuesday. That's just a direct correlation with their vaccine rollout. And we're about, I'd say, a month from getting to Israel levels of vaccinations.
I mean, what's going on in Israel is incredible. If you listen to accounts as well, so they have, which is very controversial, and I don't think we'd ever do it here. They kind of have like the equivalent of a vaccine passport, where once you're vaccinated, you can go and restaurants look normal, right? They look kind of like they looked pre-pandemic, and it's great. And Israel doesn't have 100% of people vaccinated, right? So this is with just most people vaccinated.
Yeah, great point. The vaccine passport, we haven't really talked about that this week. There was a lot of that sort of became kind of a debate this week. even though I don't believe that there's any sort of plans for us to do like some sort of federal vaccine passport. But I also don't understand what the big deal is with it. I mean, like you need to show vaccinations to go to school, right? Don't you have to like? Didn't Alex have to get vaccinated before she went to pre-K?
Yeah, you need, I mean, so one of the issues with the vaccine only having emergency use authorization is that legally, I don't believe that schools can require them because they are not fully approved by the FDA. So
Oh,
Pfizer
interesting.
announced that it's going to ask for full approval soon, which would
Mhm.
actually be huge because once those vaccines have full FDA approval, not just kind of this emergency thing, they would then schools would be allowed to require it.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Okay, I want to mention also this one data point. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, suicides dropped last year fairly significantly, almost 6%, which is really interesting given that a lot of experts were warning this time last year during the first lockdowns that we were actually going to see an uptick in suicides, and the opposite has happened.
Really interesting. I can't wait for the research on this to come out. I'm sure there's going to be some. I'm sure there already are some studies in the works. So fascinating, right? I don't know. I mean, is it possible that people being home, being with their loved ones, maybe being with like their close family, not having to commute, maybe that helped some people who were in emotional distress. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But amazing.
To politics now, the chances that President Biden's infrastructure package could become a rare spot of bipartisanship in Washington have pretty much gone from slim to none. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the most powerful Republican in office, vowed to oppose the bill every step of the way, calling that $2 trillion proposal the wrong prescription for America because of what it will do to the deficit, plus the tax hikes.
It's a shocker. I don't remember him saying that about the Trump tax cuts adding 2 trillion to the debt. Go figure. But yeah, I mean, look, this is going to all but ensure that Democrats have to do this via budget reconciliation, like they did with the stimmy, just holding a united front. They cannot lose anybody if they want to get this thing through. The White House saying, Jen Psaki said, I think yesterday, that she wants this. The White House wants this done this summer.
Nancy Pelosi said she does right. She doesn't think anything's realistic until probably July 4th. But they
Hmm.
have a lot of work cut out for them uh, on the Senate side and even the House side, potentially.
Yeah, yeah, they got to
Um,
write this a huge bill. They got to write it too.
I think the summary of the bill was like 12, 13 pages. The
Yeah,
summary. If
it's
if
a big
that's the
boy.
summary, I then give me. Can I get the cliff notes of the summary? Thanks.
Right.
Meanwhile, could a kind of gas tax be back in play to pay for some of this stuff? Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg making headlines a week ago when he endorsed an idea to tax drivers based on their miles driven as a way to partially fund the administration's infrastructure bill. He quickly walked back those comments after an outcry from progressive groups that called it a regressive tax that would unduly impact the working poor.
The growth and
Why? Is that
popularity of
because
elect
they drive is what's why would that be this is a
the,
real
the
question. Is that because they presumably
they
they're
drive
driving
further to
more?
get to work. Yeah, like drive like think about New York, right? A lot of a lot of people who drive into the city for work are poor people are coming from further away where it's the housing is cheaper. So that's why they call it sort of a regressive tax on the poor. I mean, VMT
Gotcha.
taxes, vehicle miles driven taxes, it's probably a dumb idea to begin with. But we probably should raise the gas tax. The federal gas tax is like 18 cents. It hasn't been raised since 1993, and it would be an obvious way to fund infrastructure investment, I think. But it's never get a gas tax in America is like political suicide. It don't happen. It ain't gonna happen. The only reason to think that it could happen is now that you're starting to see more people get electric cars. But still, we're years away from that. I think that eventually when we have a country where a majority of people are driving around with electric cars, you might be able to pass a gas tax to get more people out of internal combustion engines.
If you've ever driven in Europe, for me, it wasn't until I went to Europe that I had to fill up a car that I was
Oh
like,
God. Yeah.
"Whoa, why is gas so expensive here?" And it's because they have all of those taxes on it.
Yeah.
that we don't have in the United States. It's incredible, and their cars are proof that right, they have these
Yeah.
much smaller vehicles. People aren't driving around in Escalades and huge
Oh
gas
my God.
guzzlers.
Becky still talks about how, coming to America, like the most shocking thing was just seeing everybody in these just massive cars driving around, like just one person in like this big SUV. She's like, I don't get it. I don't understand.
Oh, you will when you have kids, Carlo.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And we actually bought like a crossover SUV, thinking plenty of space, and it's like
Yeah,
we still feel like it's too. I mean, we haven't gone anywhere in the past year, but when we used to
right.
go for weekends to Holmes, Long Island, to visit our family, we'd be like, this car, there's not an inch left in this car, in terms of space. So
By the
you'll
way,
get it.
can we talk for a minute about strollers and car seats while we're sort of on the topic? What a
Sure.
racket that is. What an I mean, $1,000 for a stroller. That's what we just paid. It comes with a car seat, which is nice, but whew, man, somebody is making
But
bank off of
it's a car seat that you're only going to use for a year, not even. You're going to have that's
yeah,
only like the
right.
baby car seat.
I think I'm not nearly prepared enough for the money that's about to go out the door with this baby, right?
All right. Speaking of money, on Wall Street, the S&P 500 closing above 4,000 for the first time as the stock market kicked off April with a bang. Once again, this is led by tech stocks. President Biden's announcement that he plans to pay for his infrastructure plan by raising corporate taxes has not put a dent in the rally on Wall Street, at least not yet. Markets are closed today, but the March jobs report is going to be released on schedule. Economists are expecting a big gain, about 675,000 jobs for the month of March.
I think that would put us down to 6% unemployment. Even though the the weekly jobless claims yesterday were bad, right? They were
Yeah.
much worse than expected. So go figure. Here's a little useless trivia for you. This is only the 12th time in history that a jobs report has come out on a day the market is closed. You will never, ever need to know that in your entire life, and I don't even know why I said it. But on the point about the corporate taxes, I thought this was pretty interesting. JP Morgan putting out a note yesterday that said, quote, tax increases from this bill appear to be manageable. So that's kind of interesting to hear one of these big banks just kind of say, like, look, even if they do raise these corporate taxes to fund infrastructure, we'll be able to make it. That being said, it's possible the market just hasn't priced them in yet.
So I think part of it is because if just for perspective here, Biden wants to raise the tax rate on corporations from 21% to 28%. That is still less than taxes were just 4 years ago. Because Trump, if you remember, he cut that tax rate from 35% to 21%. So you're basically talking about the halfway point. So it would be like if Trump just did a smaller tax cut.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
As one way to look at it. Okay, let's switch gears here. Testimony at the Derek Chauvin trial turned from bystander witnesses to experts who spoke about George Floyd's medical condition, with paramedics testifying that Floyd appeared to be dead by the time that they arrived on the scene. Chauvin's former supervisor also testifying that Chauvin didn't tell him that he had knelt on Floyd's neck and that he should have stopped restraining Floyd when he had become unresponsive. The prosecution called Floyd's girlfriend as a character witness. She testified about their shared struggle with addiction and how he was a mama's boy who was left broken by the death of his mother. Just another day of harrowing testimony.
Yeah, she had some really wrenching testimony. And his drug use is relevant to this case insofar as they found fentanyl in his system. So I think the prosecutors are trying to sort of put that into context here by calling the girlfriend, just sort of showing, he was one of countless Americans who have struggled with opioid addiction due to chronic pain, as she pointed out. From what I've gathered, and I'm obviously by no means a legal analyst, but the defense's case in this trial seems to be really dependent on this idea that there was this sort of gathering mob at the scene of this crime that was taking the cops' attention off of Floyd as they were kind of like fearing for their lives, I guess. The video evidence clearly disputes that, though. I mean, there were some people who were gathering to watch this, and there were some people like yelling at the cops and filming, but it was pretty obviously not some sort of huge, mob. And even if it was, I don't really think that that's a particularly strong defense. I mean, like you're the police. Crowd control is a big part of that job, especially for city police. But so
Not to
that was
mention
sort
there
of
were 4 cops. It
that
wasn't
was
like
that was a
Chauvin was
couple
the
days
only
ago.
guy there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I don't really get what the defense is up to, but they haven't called witnesses yet, so we'll see.
By the way, the sergeant who testified, his supervisor, Chauvin supervisor, what I just said was actually not correct. He did not testify that they should have stopped when Floyd was unresponsive. He said that the Chauvin and the other officers who were holding Floyd down should have stopped using force when he stopped resisting, which is a really big difference. Not when he was unresponsive. So I just wanted to clear that up. Also, Carlo, did you hear the testimony from the store clerk who accepted Floyd's counterfeit money? Really fascinating because we don't often hear about, we've seen the video, but we don't often hear about what actually led to that arrest in the first place. So the cashier testified that he didn't think George Floyd even knew that the money wasn't real. Counterfeit money, apparently a problem in this store. The policy is that if a clerk accepts counterfeit money, then they have to actually replace it with their own money. This clerk said he was going to do that. He was just going to take a 20 from his own pocket and put it into the register. But then he decided, you could see him going back and forth on the video, but he decided that he should tell his manager. The manager told someone else to call the cops. And then the clerk said he just couldn't believe it when he saw what had happened next, with the police, of course, kneeling on Floyd's neck. We know how this ended. But he said, he's been living with the guilt from that day ever since.
That's been
incredible.
That's been a real trend in these witnesses, right? These people talking about how they're just kind of like going about their day, and they happen upon this sort of event happening, and all of the ripple effects from it are it's just so sad. All of these people's lives sort of defined by this one moment in time, right?
All right, let's talk a little baseball. Opening day 2021 had something for everybody. A rain out in Boston, a COVID postponement in D.C. with the Mets and the Nats, snow in Detroit. Cubs fans booed their mayor at Wrigley Field. The Astros played to boos for the first time since their sign stealing scandal. The bleacher creatures at Yankee Stadium were back. Baseball. Oh, yeah, that was played also. The Yankees and the Dodgers lost. The Padres and the Astros won. A lot of players just said they were so happy to be back playing in front of some fans.
Yeah, it was great to see, man. It really was. Also on the basketball side, we got Final Four action tonight. Women play tonight. Men play tomorrow. And plus baseball games. You got a good sports weekend if you're looking to just chill out on the couch, which I am.
All right, before we get to Love, Hate, 8, tell us about Kevin Mahoney.
Okay, Kevin Mahoney, he was one of the victims in Boulder. He worked in hospitality most of his life. He retired early in 2014, becoming a sort of like outdoorsman. He was a father to Drew and Erica, a husband to Ellen, to whom he was married for 35 years. And his family remembered him as somebody who loved people and hated litter, which I sort of liked. So his daughter is the news director at a local radio station. She actually went on NPR to talk about his life. Remember him saying that he took over the family grocery shopping during COVID as a way to help out their mom, which is why he was at the King Superstore. She said he was famous for bursting out in song. Like if somebody said a random word, he'd start singing a song with that word in its lyrics. I really like that because my dad, I don't know if you do this, but my dad does this all the time, and it just always still makes me laugh. Anyway, Erica is pregnant with her first child, a little girl, and she said that her dad couldn't wait to become a grandfather. He was 61 years old.
She had posted a few pictures from her wedding to I believe it was her Twitter page or her Instagram, and it was just it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when you learn about all of these victims. Okay, so this is going to be my difficult pivot of the day. Time for a little bit of Love, Hate, 8. one thing that we love, getting our vaccine appointments or getting our
Woo
vaccine.
woo.
Thank you, science.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'm going tomorrow. I can't wait. Do I need to do anything, by the way? I don't have to like prepare, do I?
No, just print everything out, fill out your
Okay.
forms, get
Well, I don't have a
emotionally,
printer,
get
but
get psyched.
you know
No,
what I'm gonna do?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna do some push-ups so I get my arms popping for that vaccine selfie. I'm just kidding. I will absolutely not do that. Okay, one thing we hate, Jill, just completing the half a dozen "Are you a robot?" captcha puzzles that it takes to book these appointments. Did you have to do this? I had to go through so many. It's just the worst.
I
It's
don't think
like,
that that was part of my process,
no, you know what I'm talking about with these things,
but I
right? The
know these
like,
things they're the
oh
worst.
my God. They're getting more difficult too. That's the thing. It used to be like, which one of these pictures is a fire hydrant? Now it's like, is this little square that's touching, is this part of the crosswalk? What do you do when the fire hydrant just barely touches one of the squares? Does that count? I don't know. The machines I think are getting too smart for all of us.
I totally agree because I often have to fill those out a few different times, and I'm like, do I not know the
Yeah.
meaning of traffic light? Is that not what they are
Yeah.
referring to when they're talking about traffic light? Does the pole
No,
count?
it feels like the robots are like messing with us, right? They're like,
Yeah.
how many of these can I put in front of this person before they lose their mind and just stop?
And one thing that we ate, matzo s'mores. Okay, so this is just matzo,
Mhm.
melted chocolate, and marshmallows. And I will post on my Instagram, which is Jill R. Wagner. I will post a link to the recipe if you want to make it. It is delish.
Ooh, really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and a
Can
few
you
more
make me
days of
some?
Passover left. Sure, but then we'd have to see each other. I'll leave them in the office. We got to go. That's what you need to know for Friday, April 2nd.
Okay, happy Easter, everybody. See you on Monday.